Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO44 coming at you in another video. All right, so I'm just thinking the way that I like to kind of look at things in regards to basketball is pieces can change other pieces. Players on a certain team can switch up an entire different player's role just by being present and having the strengths that that player can provide to make up for other players' weaknesses or enhance those players' strengths, or maybe just ultimately have the synergy with that player because of how they run with them, rhythm wise, and stuff like that. I imagine that our scouts and our coaches and everybody, they have that concept down to a complete and utter science. What I want to see us do is lean in on that science and try to get as creative as possible about helping getting the most out of the players that we have if we're unable to find players that can help provide what it is that's not there. Not that I have the solution or that I know of a solution necessarily, just of the equation itself. Are there complementary pieces that can make our wings more effective? That's what I'm wondering. Is such a thing possible? Do such a player exist, or what have you? Would such a player be acquirable? Does that work? Is that a thing? Because the way that it looks to me, based on my studying of the game and my limited understanding, it could be. It could be. You could acquire a guy, and I'm just going to use a random name that has nothing to do with any real thought, but just saying, like, if you add a Steven Adams to the Lakers, maybe it helps a Russell Westbrook more so, just because he's played with him or whatever, or he has good synergy with the guy or whatever. It just little things. Maybe you can get, like I said, in regards to uh, needing Patrick Beverly on this team to help for the defensive deficiencies of other players. That type of thing. Do we have anybody that we can bring to us so that we don't have to overpay for outright pieces? Because the way I look at it is, no matter what we're doing, we're leaning in on Anthony Davis and LeBron James to score for us a lot. We want that. Particularly Anthony Davis for sure, and LeBron James, we want him to facilitate to Anthony Davis, and we want Russell Westbrook to facilitate to both of them. That's kind of how we want this thing to really run. And if guys are able to shoot efficiently around them, that I think is what's best to complement them. What we don't want is volume shooters taken away from Anthony Davis, or guys who are going to be looking for their own shot and not helping Anthony Davis get the ball in the second half. See, that's the thing. This team has certain identity issues as it pertains to those things. And if they if they betray those things, they fail. Now, the question is, does that change with the pieces we're bringing in, which is essentially the whole point of what we're talking about in the first place? Can you make it so that we don't need to rely upon feeding Anthony Davis so much in the second half as a means of us scoring? Could we bring in a player that kind of changes our entire identity in that way? And one of the things that I look at our team and say is we must be careful shooting the basketball because of how we're constructed. We can't shoot volume shots and expect to be successful. But maybe bringing in Bogdanovich and Sadiq Bey can allow us to be gunslingers from behind the arc. Now we don't have to be as careful shooting under 30 threes a game because we can actually have volume shooters that we can expect to comfortably attempt 8 and 9 threes on a given night. Like, that is something that changes the entire identity of the team. But, like, what if the players that you bring in now are slow-footed and can't defend? Now you're even worse defensively. You know what I mean? As to which now you have new holes that you need to patch. So it's like these type of things, like when we're making trades like this, I can see why the Lakers are hesitant to pull the trigger on certain things, even though we're waiting on the 15th to come around. But, the Lakers would probably want to be very careful about certain pieces or overpaying for pieces or what have you because of that. You just don't want to change the team around in a negative way, but you definitely want to find enhancements if possible. So, I look at Wenyen Gabriel as an enhancement piece to Anthony Davis and LeBron James when they want to go big. You put Wenyen down there, slap him on the floor is a 3, or put LeBron James at the 3, and suddenly you have a complementary player who can help them do some of the things that otherwise, they don't necessarily want to do when they're only two bigs on the floor. Things that they're probably going to have to be responsible for. He can take care of that. And so that's why we have such a fantastic dynamic when he's on the floor with those two. or when we're interchangeable and we can kind of leave Anthony Davis with him down there when Bron's not on the floor. It makes more sense. So my thing is, wouldn't it stand to reason that we find ourselves with another Wenyen Gabriel piece? Because what we find ourselves being is too reliant upon him, and as a result of us not having him, we're barely able to be competitive. And it's like, if you realize that, and then you look at the other versions of that piece, and they're just not up to par. It's like, well, we should be looking for that. We should be looking for another Wenyen Gabriel or someone even better step in front of him, so that we can have some of that same dynamic. So it's like, these are the type of things I'm looking at. It's like we're too reliant on certain players, and we're leaning on other players for things that we could get other players to do. So if we were able to package Patrick Beverley and a Kendrick Nunn, if we were able to do those, and maybe a first-round pick, and then bring us the pieces that kind of make it so that we don't have to be so careful shooting the ball, so that we don't have to be so deficient around the perimeter, so that guys like John Morant aren't expected to go off for their career high against us. Because that's really where we're at. I look at the game like tonight, and I'm like, Jaylen Brown is going to eat. That's a given. If he is aggressive, we in theory should not even be able to stop him from driving at the rim. Now, once he gets to the rim, he got to deal with Anthony Davis, but that's something we don't want to have to rely upon, based on the fact that that's just waiting for the referees to call the whistle on AD. You're just waiting on that. So it's like, AD being the most efficient defensive player and our number one offensive player means that he cannot actually be his best defensive self, which is another thing we need to try to figure out how we can help ourselves with. Let Anthony Davis be more active defensively and allow him to be able to survive without being so careful when he picks up fouls. Okay, that's going to be key. Because if we're too reliant upon him in the playoffs, if we make the playoffs, and we can barely play him when he's in foul trouble, and he can barely play defense against these dynamic bigs that are going to be coming at him, we can't win. Because we're still going to be relying upon other players to make up for what he does defensively, which we don't have on the roster. So it's like, these are things that, I look at a team like the Pelicans, and this is what I know. If you're not building your team to be able to properly match up with them, you're not really winning now. I know that sounds strange, but they are a team where they have no holes. They got sides, they got shooters, they got defenders, they got everything. Catch and shoot, guys who can shoot off the dribble, guys who can make plays for everybody else, guys who can do multiple things. It's everything. So if you're going to consider yourself being able to compete with the field, in my humble opinion, they're probably the team that you must be able to match up with in the Western Conference. If you don't have the big players and the wingy players to be able to see them, if you don't have somebody that you can put in front of Zion to at least slow him down, they're going to eat. They're going to beat you, and you're not actually a win now team. You're not actually a win now team if you run into them. And it's that kind of thing. It's like, you can't be at certain disadvantages and call yourself a contender. It does not allow you an opportunity to really compete. It's the same thing I say about the Clippers. They look great with Kawhi down there, but if he's not down there, they're not a contender. If they don't get them a backup center, they're not a contender. Those are two things that they need at all times. Kawhi to be great, PG to be great, and of course, Zubac to have somebody to come off the bench behind him. These are things that you can be a contender. You have all the names, but if you're missing these elements, you're not going to compete when you need to be able to. In certain possessions, you're just at a disadvantage inherently. There's nothing you can do. You're going to watch the team score, and it's going to happen to you. It's like, when you know that you have those disadvantages and you have to go up against elite teams, they know you have those disadvantages too. So they're going to attack those very weaknesses. And so it's like, going up against the Celtics tonight, it's like, okay, they struggled yesterday against the Clippers. I don't know how they're going to come out. But if they play up to their capability, they should be able to effectively stifle us and score on us, just because of the overall talent of the matchups on the floor. So it's like, we're counting on them to either struggle or for us to overachieve, for a superstar to go, Hall of Fame on us in terms for us to winning this game. I'm calling for Anthony Davis to get 50 points. Because I think it's going to be required for us to win. I'm not even kidding. 49 ain't gonna cut it. That's how I'm equating this situation. So it's like, we better be ready, and the fact that we have to lean on him to be our main rim protector, you're shoveling him toward foul trouble every night. You're just saying, here, offense rather, carve him up, drive your best player at him as much as possible in the first quarter, and try to see if you can pick up those 2 early fouls, so the Lakers have to play on the heels all night. They don't have nobody else in defenders scoring the paint all night. So that's like, if we don't remedy that, we can have all the fight in the world, and we can talk about how well we're shooting or not shooting, careful, all this, that, and the third, but teams are just going to put big players on the floor, rebound over us, get easy layups, and end the game. So That's the reality of it, and that's why I look at the Pelicans as a team that it could really win the West, because they do have that advantage on just about everybody out here. Because of Zion Williamson and Jonas Valanciunas, and then you look at Larry Nance Jr., and you look at Jackson Hayes. It's just so much size they got down there on top of Brandon Ingram and then Jones and all these players. It's like, look, if you're not making trades to be able to deal with that, don't think you're actually going to put yourself in a position to win. Don't think that. You're not going to avoid them. They're going to be right there, in my opinion. And if it ain't them, it's Memphis, and you're going to need the same stuff dealing with Jaren Jackson and Brandon Clark and all those guys. Like, that's what I think the West is really about. With respect to Golden State, I don't know. I don't like everything they got to deal with. Lean on, rather. Right now, they need to trade big time, in my opinion. So I don't see them coming out the West. Portland, those guys, they're not going to be able to do it, in my opinion. Not deep enough. Minnesota has some real issues, and they're not going to be able to fix them. So it's stuff like that where I'm like, those are the teams that really, if we're not looking at those two teams, honestly, as the teams that we must be able to defeat in the West, then we're not making the right trades for ourselves. Period. Those are the teams. And I think Sacramento might actually be one of those two. They might be a Cinderella like Dallas last year. I don't think Dallas is real this year. But like Dallas last year, you could very well see the Sacramento Kings just get some good playoff matchups and like find themselves in the Western Conference Finals. They have the talent. They literally do, especially if they can avoid New Orleans and Memphis somehow. Yeah, they can do it. Because they are actually constructed better than some of these teams that are all so loved and so overhyped. So that's what I'm trying to express. If they can stay healthy, teams like that, you have to deal with them. Memphis, Sacramento, Denver, another one. You got to build to be able to defeat them. And so that's it, man. I like Bogdanovich a lot, but it seems like we're trying to plug our holes up. But you put him on the floor, what kind of success is he going to have against those dudes? None. So who you going to be relying on? Same dudes you're relying on now. He'll put some extra points on the board, but like that's not going to make up for other aspects of the situation that's going to ultimately leave you at a disadvantage anyway. So I like the Bogdanovich Bay trade, but you better accompany that with us trying to get somebody else too. You better try to get Isaiah Stewart. Like, seriously. I ain't even kidding. Like, that's the type of move we need. And I know Isaiah Stewart ain't coming to the Lakers, but like, if everything were everything, yeah, that's the kind of face of player we need. We need somebody who can block shots, stretch the floor, grab a bunch of rebounds, push people around, make life easy on AD. Yeah. Make life easy on Bron. Do the bruiser stuff. I swear to God, I would add him to the team and just tell him to make it right with Bron. I'm crazy like that anyway. Because I grew up on Kobe Bryant. He liked that kind of stuff. Or you want to fight me? All right, come to my team, fight for me. That's how I look at it. I'm a king, so he's a warrior. You want to beat my head in? Nah, he's not gonna want to do that after we make sure that he feels good about being a Laker. Like that's how I think. So, you know what I'm saying? I know what we need as it pertains to size, and that's really what I'm looking at. Size and energy, something that's gonna accompany Russell Westbrook and keep the ball rolling as it pertains to size, energy, especially if we're gonna be losing Patrick Beverley, which it looks like we will be. Stanley Johnson signed with the San Antonio Spurs. I forgot to tell you guys that. That's a thing. Also, Bogdanovich has signed an extension at some point. I heard that as well, which I wasn't aware of. So he's not on an expiring contract. There's some sort of extension. Not sure what the framework is on that. So these are things to know. And of course, we're approaching the 15th very soon, which will make it so that we can make certain trades that we've been waiting to make. So, yeah, man, it's interesting times in LA, especially with the Celtics in town. So we're going to definitely look at that game with a certain keen level of focus. This pertains to the unit and what we want them to do. And, of course, I've already made the pregame video on that. But, it's nothing else that I really am aware of other than just we're waiting for more rumors to hit because ain't nobody going to pull a trigger on anything until the 15th. So it'll just be rumors for now, stuff that you probably won't see happen. Honestly, we've seen this movie all summer long. So I have no real inclination of what to expect, but judging from the history, what I've often seen is that the trade that you ain't even heard nothing about, players you had no idea you weren't dreaming about seeing are going to be the players that you end up acquiring in some trade to get your picks out of here. It's going to be something like that. If our GM and front office is serious about moving those picks, I do think they should be inflated in price when we try to sell them. As I said yesterday, I made a whole video on that too, but hype cost. We're the Lakers. We got the Laker picks. Make them give us a lot for those picks, please. And so that's what I want to see. I would love to see the Lakers do something multi-team deal to swing specific types of pieces. Not necessarily saying I want to do a deal with Indy and taking all of Indy's pieces. No, give me that player from Indy, give me that player from Detroit, give me that player from San Antonio, because that's really how the Lakers need to be trying to construct what it is that they're doing right now. You need specific players for specific things on specific contracts. And if you can't get what you're paying for, don't pay. I'd rather us make no trade than make another bad one, honestly. So that's what I got, man. That is my noon Laker chat. Oh, I guess I'll call it noon Laker chat. And yeah, man, hope everyone's having a fantastic day. And that's what I got to say. BDF44. Thank you all for watching.